Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. It is, what is it? November the 5th, 2025, 3:04 in the afternoon. We have not done this in some time. It has been a very long time since I've live streamed everything, but we're currently going back through all of these devotions from 5 years ago, and we're currently in the book of Zechariah, and my personal assistant brought it to my attention that I skipped chapter number 8. Now, I don't think I skipped it. What I think happened was I failed to save it and then upload it to YouTube, which is where we send all of our links to. So here I am, years later, and we're going to redo Zechariah chapter number 8. So if you want to follow along with me and read in your Bibles, go ahead and turn there. Zechariah, very close to the end of your Old Testament, rather. I should have that down by now, shouldn't I? Whether Zechariah is Old or New Testament. All the way toward the back of your Old Testament, chapter number 8. There are 14 chapters in the book. And so we're right here, smack in the middle of it. And I'm a little rusty. I don't study Zechariah often, but I'm going to do my best to catch you up briefly, if not for my own sake, and then we'll give you the sense of chapter number 8. So Zechariah is taking place after the Babylonian captivity had ended. When you read the books of Daniel and Jeremiah and Ezekiel, you learn about the Babylonian captivity. Each of those men had a different part in it when they were there. Daniel was the first one there, and then Jeremiah, if I'm not mistaken, was the second of those three, and then Ezekiel would have been the third one to come over. And so the 70-year Babylonian captivity is over now, and the temple has been rebuilt at this point. The book of Zechariah is there toward the ending of the rebuilding of the temple, and it's showing God's people what his plans for them are. So let me see if I can try to make that a little cleaner, a little more concise. Because of Israel's sin, God allowed the Babylonians under the reign of Nebuchadnezzar to come to Israel, and through 3 different waves brought the people into captivity there in Babylon. Daniel's group was the first group. He chose the young, handsome, intelligent, and even wealthier kids to come over, and his plan was to change everything about them. He's going to change their diet, he's going to change their religion, he changes their names. He's putting them basically into a brainwashing scenario so that they would be Babylonians through and through. That way, when he brought in wave 2 and wave 3, those people, having seen the elite, noble young people who everybody admired and looked up to living as Babylonians, they then would do the same thing. Of course, it backfired. If you know the book of Daniel at all, you know Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah did not partake in that, and so it didn't exactly work according to Nebuchadnezzar's plans. So anyhow, years and years pass, decades pass, and finally the Babylonian captivity is over, and Cyrus begins to let people head back to Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is still in bad shape, terrible shape. It lies waste. In fact, the time of Zechariah is still well before the time of Ezra and Nehemiah by, I want to say, 50 to 60 years. And when Nehemiah asks about Jerusalem, it's still broken down and burned with fire, the walls destroyed. So the temple is rebuilt first under Zerubbabel, and then Nehemiah comes back and he gets the wall erected around Jerusalem. So what we're doing here with Zechariah is the captivity is over, and people have returned to Jerusalem, but it's still not what they remember it to be. And of course, many of those people were dead. Many of them had never seen Jerusalem in its former glory. And so God here is using the book of Zechariah to show how he is going to reestablish the nation of Israel and the city of Jerusalem in particular, so that the people can have his hand of blessing on them all over again. The book of Zechariah is divided into 2 different sections, and if you've been watching these from chapters 1 to 7, you know all this already. But the chapters 1 through 8 discuss the visions and dreams that God has given Zechariah regarding the city of Jerusalem. Chapters 7 and 8 sort of summarize those things, and then 9 through 14 go in a different direction altogether. So right here today in chapter number 8, we're at the end of the first section of the book, and we're going to see how God blesses the people of Israel. So if you're following along, let's pick it right up here. Zechariah chapter number 8, verse number 1. Zechariah speaking says, "Again, the word of the Lord of hosts came to me saying." So what we're about to read, and it'll be the entire chapter, is the words that God gave to Zechariah. God himself speaking to Zechariah. Verse number 2, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I was jealous for Zion," meaning Jerusalem, "with great jealousy, and I was jealous for her with great fury." God desires the attention and time of his people, and he was not getting that from Israel and Jerusalem, and he was jealous of it. We often think of jealousy as a sin. It's only a sin when that which we desire isn't ours to rightfully possess. For instance, I am a married man. I have had a wonderful wife for 31 years now here, and her affections and attention, I'm jealous of those things. She is mine and I am hers. And so it's not sinful for me to be jealous of her affection and attention because she is mine. And so it rightfully belongs to me and mine to her as well. So God is not sinning here. God is incapable of sin. He never has sinned, never will sin, incapable of it, as we said. And so we're going to see that he's jealous of Israel and the people. Verse number 3, "Thus saith the Lord, I am returned unto Zion, and I will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem shall be called a city of truth, and the mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain." So there's two ways to view this. Number one is during this time of the writing and the decades following, God's promising his people that he would be there in the city with them. Another way to look at it is when Christ sets up his millennial kingdom. He's already been mentioned as the branch in chapters, I think, 6 and 7, and he's going to be ruling and reigning from Jerusalem. So he will indeed, the Lord, be in the midst of Jerusalem. Notice, Jerusalem shall be called a city of truth. Well, where the Lord is, you're going to find truth. Jesus said in John 14, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." If you want to know the truth, then seek God. You'll find that truth. And if you want to find error, then go the opposite direction of God and the Word of God, then you'll definitely find that error. But Jerusalem will be called a city of truth. As God's people, we ought to seek and desire to be people who walk in the truth. He says, "And the mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain." Of course, the Lord is also holy. "Be therefore holy, even as I am holy." And so where God dwells, there will be holiness. Verse 4, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, there shall yet old men and old women dwell in the streets of Jerusalem, and every man with his staff in his hand for very age. And the streets of the city shall be full of boys and girls playing in the streets thereof." So the city is going to be returned to its former glory. We're going to see the elderly return and the youth return. Think of where the city is right now. It's not safe for children. It's not safe for the elderly. It's in a difficult spot because it's yet to be completely rebuilt. There's still broken down walls and burned up buildings. And so the elderly, in fact, at the time, aren't even able to make it back to Jerusalem, many of them. And the youth would not find it safe to be there. So you're going to find a middle-aged group of people, young adults through middle age, those who are still capable of navigating such an environment. And so God's telling us here the city is going to be fully restored at some point in time. The elderly and the youth will be back, and I love seeing that. The streets shall be full of boys and girls playing in the streets thereof. It just sounds like divine utopia. Verse 6, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, if it be marvelous in the eyes of the remnant of this people in these days, shall it also be marvelous in mine eyes, saith the Lord of hosts." And by that word marvelous, this, he's insinuating it may even be beyond your ability to believe. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Can the Lord furnish a table in the wilderness? Is anything impossible for God? Of course, the answers to all of those are no. Yet when we hear of magnificent things being promised, we sometimes stop and say, man, that would be nice. And God's saying, I'm not telling you that it would be nice if it were to happen. I'm telling you it is going to happen. More than you can ever imagine is available. And although you see it marvelous and almost something that may never come about, I don't see it that way. I know what I'm capable of. Verse number 7, thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will save my people from the east country and from the west country, and I will bring them, and they shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and they shall be my people, and I will be their God in truth and in righteousness. So all the different directions that God's people had been scattered because of the incoming captivity, the captivity of itself, as the people ran and became refugees in other nations and territories, God says, I'm going to bring all of them back. Now remember, this is all contingent upon their continued obedience to God. The reason that God took the people captive in the first place was because of disobedience and rebellion against him. And he promised, if you'll be obedient and you will do the things that I tell you to do, then these things are going to happen. And that's why the end of verse number 8 says, in truth and in righteousness. God can only be your God in truth and in righteousness. If you are living and walking in unrighteousness, well, then you've got a strained relationship with him. And we're speaking for saved people, born again people. The Lord chastens those whom he loves. And if you're walking in disobedience, it's a strained relationship. And so we have to make sure we're walking in righteousness and in truth. Verse number 9, things are going to shift gears here a little bit. Thus saith the Lord of hosts. So because of what he just promised in verses 1 through 8, we need to see the responsibility of the people here. Let your hands be strong. Ye that hear in these days the words, let your hands be strong, ye that hear in these days these words, by the mouth of the prophets, which were in the day that the foundation of the house of the Lord of hosts was laid, for the temple might be built. For before these days there was no hire for man, nor any hire for beast, neither was there any peace to him that went out or came in because of the affliction. For I set all men against everyone against his own neighbor. Well, I really butchered that one, didn't I? So verse number 9 tells us that the hands of the people need to be strong and prepare, because that which God has promised through the prophets is going to come to pass. He says, which were in the day that the foundation of the Lord of hosts was laid, that the temple might be built. If you remember, Zechariah and Haggai are contemporaries. The temple had begun to be built, but then the people got lazy and they were facing a little bit of opposition. And so because of that persecution, they stopped the building of the temple. And Haggai had to come on the scene, and Zechariah here to preach for the resumption of the building of the temple. Now, the temple had been rebuilt by the time of Zechariah, but that's what he's speaking to here. The foundation was laid, but the people stopped. Why? They were weak. And so he's telling them, your hands need to be strong. If we're going to see Israel and Jerusalem return to their former glory, you're going to have to step up. Verse 10, we read it. We'll read it again and try to do it properly this time. For before these days there was no hire for man, nor any hire for beast. So there was no work to be had. Neither was there any peace to him that went out or came in because of the affliction. For I set every man against his neighbor. And God in his judgment had turned the people one to another, and he took peace from them. But now I will not be under the residue of this people, as in the former days, saith the Lord of hosts. For the seed shall be prosperous, the vine shall give her fruit, and the ground shall give her increase, and the heavens shall give their dew, and I will cause the remnant of this people to possess all things. things. So God's reversing the curse that he put on the people and on the land, whereas he judged them for their sin. Now, in repentance, they're getting right with him again, and he will restore his former blessing to them. Verse 13, and it shall come to pass that as ye were a curse among the heathen, O house of Judah and house of Israel, so will I save you, and ye shall be a blessing. Fear not, but let your hands be strong. So prepare yourself for the work that's about to be undertaken. You've got to be willing to press forward in strength and not wilt in weakness. Verse 14, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, as I thought to punish you when your fathers provoked me to wrath, saith the Lord of hosts, and I repented not, so again have I thought in these days to do well unto Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Fear ye not. He said, when your forefathers sinned against me, I did not hesitate and was faithful to judge them for it. And likewise, now that you're being restored, I will be faithful to see to it that you're blessed. These are the things that ye shall do. So the requirements that God has on it, God's blessings often have contingencies upon them, and they're transactional in nature. God says, if you'll do this, then I'll do this. So here's what he says. These are the things that ye shall do. Speak ye every man the truth to his neighbor. So we're not going to live in dishonesty. We're not going to live in lies and I'm trying to think of the Ten Commandments, bearing false witness. We're to speak the truth and carry on properly there. The judgment of truth and peace in your gates, and let none of you imagine evil in your hearts against his neighbor, and love no false oath. For all these are things that I hate, saith the Lord. So we're to do right to our neighbor, we're to love our neighbor, we're to speak the truth to them, and do not bring any false oath to them. And the word of the Lord of hosts came unto me, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the fast of the 4th month, and the fast of the 5th, and the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th shall be to the house of Judah joy and gladness, and cheerful feasts. Therefore, love the truth and peace. So the people had undergone a habit of fasting in order to seek God's forgiveness. Well, now that they've repented and they have gotten right with God, their sins have been forgiven, now the Lord is going to turn those fasting days into feasting days. When you're no longer in sackcloth and ashes fasting for your sin because they've been forgiven, now you can feast. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, it shall come to pass that there shall come people, and the inhabitants of many cities, and the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go speedily to pray before the Lord, and to seek the Lord of hosts. I will go also. Yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem, and to pray before the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of the nations, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. So once the city of Jerusalem is returned to its former glory, the blessings of God had returned, and people can find God in Jerusalem, people from all the nations of the earth will seek to go there. And perhaps this is speaking of the millennial reign of Christ during the 1,000 years at the end of the tribulation period, or it could have been during the time as well, or a little bit of both. But people want to be where the blessings of God are. No one wants to live without blessings, and blessings are found only in the hand of the Lord. All right, I had to hurry up and finish that because I don't know how long this battery has. My setup has not been set up to live stream for some time, so I'm going to get off of here now. We got it done, and so thank you for watching. I hope this was a help and a blessing to you, and you have a wonderful day. Keep looking on our Facebook page or go to our YouTube page for the rest of the chapters of Zechariah. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.